And here we have the pH WatchDog from Eco Depot LLC. It appears that the system just completed a cycle, and we have a pH of just about 6. I'll explain exactly what you're looking at. Again, this is the full pH WatchDog system. The yellow portion here on the bottom is our secondary spill pallet, a secondary containment system in case of any type of spill out of our black mixing drum. Inside the black mixing drum is where we store our acid, also known as the sodium bisulfate. And we have about a third of the drum full, which is right about where you want it. This here is the control enclosure. This is the electrical portion of the system, which contains all of the electrical components. I'll go ahead and open it up here. What you have inside, we're looking at the pH controller from Pinpoint pH. Again, we're right at around 6 right now, a pH of 6. Again, the system just completed a cycle. Here you have your small control junction box. Inside is a 8-pin relay controlling all 3 major components of the system. Below is the GFI, which is the recipient of the main power supply for the system. Now, what happens with your pH system here? We have 3 different settings over here. Right now we're on the central reading here, center reading, which is the actual read position, which will show the actual pH of the washout pit behind the pH system here. If I push it up, we'll get the high limit, which is 8.50. So when our pH controller and probe actually sense a pH of 8.5, the system relay will trigger it and actually turn the system on. If I push this button down here, it'll take us to our low setting, which is 7.8. When the pH system reads receives a pH of 7.81, the system will actually be shut off. And again, we're at about 6.5 right now. As stated before, behind us here is the actual sediment basin and treatment pit. If we look down at the bottom here, we have our submersible pump with float switch, and right next to that is the pH probe. Now, the pH probe simply sits in the sediment basin and picks up the pH 24 hours a day, 7 times a week at all times. What happens again when the system is triggered, when it reaches a high pH, which is your high limit, that set limit, the system will turn on. The relay actually transfers a signal to our pump there, and the water is pumped through the pump up this intake pipe here and is actually brought in to the storage tank, the acid mixing tank here. What happens after the water level rises, it then hits this pipe here, which is our discharge pipe. The water will actually travel down the discharge pipe and back into the sediment basin here. Okay, just a quick recap of our pH WatchDog and all of its components. Again, you have your base of the system, which is a secondary spill pallet for safety reasons. On top of that, you have your black mixing drum or storage drum, which holds our sodium bisulfate. Here we have a small 50-pound bag of the sodium bisulfate, which is a granular dry acid and is only activated when wet or in water, and is actually labeled as an irritant rather than a hazard. So very, very safe and effective way of treating pH. Now, since we've already run through a treatment cycle and we have an acceptable pH right now, I'm going to remove the probe from the pit and perform a calibration, and in addition to the calibration, you will see how the system actually turns on and turns off. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and perform a calibration of the pH system. Needed for a calibration are the following components in the jars here in front of us. On the far right, we simply have a bottle of diluted water. The purpose of the diluted water is actually just to clean the probe of any of the following solutions seen here in between transfers, just so none of the solutions are actually combined with one another. So again, on the far right, we have just a bottle of simply diluted water. Next to that, we have a bottle of cleaner. Next to that, as you can see here, is the 7 solution, which once the probe is inserted into the 7 solution, you should receive close to a pH of 7. And then finally, on the far left, we have a solution of 10. On top of your necessary solutions, also recommended is some type of rag, simply to clean the probe off of any debris. This probe was just removed from our sediment basin here, and as you can see, it does have some minor sediment on it. And then finally needed is a simple, small flathead screwdriver, which is actually necessary to turn the dials on the pH controller for proper calibration. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and calibrate our pH WatchDog. I have the probe here. I'm going to start by actually dipping it in our cleaning solution. The cleaning solution will both remove any debris that we have on the probe and also any crystallization, any coating over the actual electrode ball. And normally you want to actually place the probe in the cleaner and let it sit for about a minute or two, but I've already done that, so I'm going to just give it a quick swirl around. Once I've done that, I'll take our diluted water, give it a quick swirl just to remove any of the cleaning solution. The cleaning solution has a very, very low pH, and it's important to always mix the probe in some type of diluted water between transfer to different solutions. You certainly don't want to mix a low pH component like your cleaner with your 7 solution. Obviously, you won't get the proper calibration if your 7 solution is off. Now that I've done that, I'll take my rag here, give it a good wipe, then I'll go ahead and insert the probe into our 7 solution. Again, give it a good stir, and it may take a little while, 10, 20, even 30 seconds to get your actual pH. Now, as you can see on our pH controller, we're at a pH of around 7.1. So now what I'm going to do is take my flathead screwdriver. On the left side here, the calib side of the calibration dials, I'm going to insert the screwdriver and simply turn it back just a tad until I get around 7. Now, sometimes you might be 100th or so off. If I have 7.01 or 6.99, that's fine. Close to 7 is fine. So we're there. It looks like it's going to jump back and forth between 7 and 7.01. Now that I've done that, I'm going to insert the probe into our 10 solution here. But before I do, I just want to double check. This plug here actually feeds directly into the relay. When the pH controller picks up a pH higher than our preset limit, generally around 8.5, 9, this is what actually triggers the relay to turn the pump on. The reason I'm unplugging this is because when I put the probe into the 10 solution here, the pH unit will actually pick that up, and with this plugged in, will actually activate the pump. Now, since we have an acceptable pH in our treatment area here in our sediment basin, I don't want to disturb that. So with this unplugged, I can go ahead and insert the probe into our 10 solution. And give it a good stir and let it rest. And we're somewhat close. We're at 9.95, 996. Now I'll move to the right side, the slope dial here. Simply insert the flathead screwdriver and give it a good twist. And we're there. This system was most likely calibrated by site personnel probably about a week, 2 weeks ago tops, which is why we're this, so close to the preset limits. So just to ensure, just give it another little turn here. And we're at 10. Now I always like to double check myself. I'll remove it from the 10 solution again, dip it into our diluted water here, wipe it down, and just to double check myself, I like to insert it back into our 7 solution. Again, give it a good swirl, let it rest, and see what we come up with. Okay, so as you can see, it's always an important point to double check yourself. So we're just a tad bit high here. So again, I'll move back over to my left, Allen dial. Move it back just slightly until I'm at 7. So now I'm good to go. My probe's calibrated, the system's calibrated, and we are wrapped up here. Okay. Now with our pH watchdog here, we've already completed the cycle and we have a fair pH of around 7.5. Now since the cycle has already been completed here, I'm actually going to set up a little example cycle using some of our calibration fluids here. Now again, we're at a pH of about 7.5. Now when I take my probe here and I insert it into our 10 solution, we're actually going to see the system activate as if there was a pH of 10 in our treatment area. Now this is our discharge pipe here. In just a few seconds, the treatment drum here should become full and we should begin to see treatment of the high alkaline sediment water here. Okay, now it looks like the acid storage drum has become full and is now bringing water into our treatment area. Now again, we already have an acceptable pH in this area of 7.5, but within a couple of days we did not, and we actually had a pH of what the pH controller is reading, which is a pH of 10. It would just take a few minutes for the pH to drop. Now what we'll do, simply remove our probe from our 10 solution, clean it off, dip it in our diluted water, and then insert it into our 7 solution. Once in the 7 solution, the pH system picks up the acceptable reading, the pump turns off, and the water stops being pumped into our acid storage unit. As you can see, the water flow has just about stopped. Just getting the last little remaining bits out of the drum. And the end result would be something like this, an acceptable pH of right around 7.